Groucho Marx once said that outside of a dog, a book is a man's best friend. But inside of a dog, it's too dark to read. I'm going to share with you a book review of the best book I've ever read on model railroading on Ron's Trains and Things right now. Hi, I'm Ron of Ron's Trains and Things, and today on this Feature Friday segment, I'm going to bring you a book review of what I believe is the most important book on model railroading I have ever personally read. This is especially important information for those of you who may be beginning in model railroading, or maybe who don't have a lot of background in railroading and want to learn more about how real railroads operate and how you can bring that to life on your model railroad layout. The book that I'm reviewing today is John Armstrong's Track Planning for Realistic Operation, Prototype Railroading Concepts for Your Model Railroad. John Armstrong wrote this book originally in 1963, and this is the third edition, which is still available, which was updated in 1998. In this 144-page resource, John tells us about how real railroads operate and about how we can bring that to life on our model railroads. In part one of the book, he talks to us about prototype railroad operation. There he talks about how real railroads load, move, and unload products and passengers across their system. He talks about how they assemble cars into trains in order to help promote the most efficient movement of those products and those cars across their system. He also talks about track arrangements in industrial areas, in yards, and in passenger station areas that help prototype railroads to be able to accomplish their work. He talks in great detail about how yards work and efficient track arrangement to help facilitate that work in those yards. He talks about single and double track operations, signaling, and how they control trains and help avoid accidents and injuries on their systems. And he talks about specialized facilities and trackage that railroads use every day as well. In part two of Track Planning for Realistic Operation, John takes those important prototype concepts and principles and applies them to model railroad design and operation on a layout. He talks about operation reliability that comes from developing a set of standards for yourself as you build your layout. That is standards about things such as minimum radius for your curves, minimum turnout numbers, maximum grade, and other important standards. He talks about use of things like easements in your curves in order to make your trains run more efficiently, and the importance of sidings and having passing sidings that are long enough to facilitate the trains that you plan to run on your railroad. He talks about designing in such a way as to meet the goals that you have set for yourself on your railroad, which means you need to start with some goals for what you want your railroad to do and what you want to represent on your railroad. He talks about different styles of bench work, single and multiple decks, as well as mushroom-style layouts, and the advantages and disadvantages of each of those types of bench work and layout. He also shows some examples of some basic types of layout track arrangements and talks about the advantages and disadvantages of each one of those. Finally, he talks about the planning of the industries and details that you want to put trackside along your model railroad, placing them in ways that look prototypical, that make sense, and that promote model railroad operations on your layout. When I first started in model railroading, I didn't know a lot about how prototype railroads worked. But John's book changed all that. It also changed my very concept of what a model railroad was really all about. He opened my eyes to the possibility of model railroad operations on a layout in such a way that turns a simple oval of track into the dreams of an empire that can really represent prototype railroading. John explains everything that he talks about in his book in great detail, and yet does so in simple language that is easy to understand. He brings real railroading to life, but down to earth at the same time. If you're just starting in model railroading, or maybe you've been model railroading for years but are looking for something new and fresh to revive the hobby for you, I encourage you to pick up a copy of Track Planning for Realistic Operation and add it to your model railroad library. If you check out my Amazon Pick of the Week in the description below this video, you'll find a link there to where you can get your very own copy of this great book and wonderful model railroad resource. I hope you've enjoyed this book review on this Feature Friday segment of Ron's Trains and Things. If you have, give it a thumbs up down below, and be sure to leave a comment or question in the comment section down at the bottom of the page. I love to hear from you, and I always respond to your comments. If you subscribe to my channel down below and click on the little bell icon next to the subscribe button, you'll get notified every time I upload a new video, and you won't have to miss a single episode of Ron's Trains and Things. I also want to encourage you to share this video on your social media or model railroad forums that you participate in so others can find this and other episodes of Ron's Trains and Things that may be helpful to them as well. Also, in that expanded description down below, you'll find some information about my model railroad, the Texas, Colorado, and Western, and the Facebook page that I keep dedicated to it that tells you about how I built this model railroad from the ground up. You can also see information there about how you can support Ron's Trains and Things if that's something you'd like to do. I thank you for watching this episode today. Join me again next Tuesday for another model building segment, and I look forward to seeing you then.